Good afternoon and welcome again to the Veterans Forum. I'm Bob Stevens. I'm hosting the show and I'm real happy to do it. This, as you may know, is our way of trying to help some of the guys and gals who served in any branch of the service from World War II on to share their stories of what they said, what they've seen, what they've done, and more important sometimes, how it's affected them after their service life. Today we have a real good guy. As you can see, we have all kinds of goodies here. We may not have time to go through all of it, but you'll get a real good shot of it. Today we have Gery Benedetti. For the record, sir, would you tell us your name and spell it?
Gery, G-E-R-Y, Benedetti, B-E-N-E-D-E-T-T-I.
Thank you, sir.
Irish name.
Oh, yeah, it was Swedish with an I. Now, seriously, what were your dates of service and what branch of the service were you in?
I went into boot camp in '66 at Great Lakes in Michigan.
That's 1966.
Right, and that would be 1966, right? Yeah, I forget the century change there. That was Navy. I was there for 3 months, and I think I mentioned this to you before. I had always wanted to be in the Seabees. Mm-hmm. That was my...
Good choice.
That's what I wanted to do, but unfortunately when I got my orders, it was to a survey ship, cable layer up in Kittery, Maine. So I served on board that for 2 years. I could have stayed on it for the whole 4 years. Yeah, I could have. It was a type of ship. It had no armament. It was what we did was the acoustical survey. Let me go back on that. We did the survey for the anti-submarine warfare detection.
Oh.
And that was we started up in above Iceland, just below the ice cap, and we went all the way to the Azores. In fact, we set the world record of anchoring in 5 miles of water down around the Azores.
And the hook held?
Oh yeah, hook held. Well, what it was is we had cable on board. Oh. There were 3 tanks in the ship, and we would start. Western Electric had a lot to do with this. They had a.
Let me interrupt a second.
Oh yeah, sure.
So we can set the stage. To build a little history, can you tell me and tell us where you were born, when, and what you did prior to getting into the service, and what we go into boot camp after that?
Oh, okay.
You know, get a
sure.
little bit of who you are.
My dad was a pilot in World War II, and he was stationed at the time in Louisiana towards the end of the war. And I was born in West Monroe, Louisiana.
You're a Southern boy.
Well, not really. Sort of a little touch of Southern, but I'm from North Adams, originally North Adams, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. And I went to school up there. I went to Mark Hopkins School, and then I went up to high school in Bennington.
Mark Hopkins, that was a private boys' school, wasn't it?
No, that was part of the state college, which is MCLA now.
Oh,
that was
yeah,
their
the old
teaching.
North Adams State.
Right,
yeah,
that was their
okay.
sort of a teaching.
Uh-huh.
And I worked at the Adams Supermarket, which is now the Big Y down there in North Adams. And after I graduated from high school, I worked as a ski instructor and ski patrol up at Thunder Mountain, which is in Cheshire, Charlemont, Massachusetts.
Yeah. You know Bud Tucker?
Bud Tucker, I know Bud and Laura Tucker, I know them well.
Bud and I will go way back when, yeah.
Really?
38 years on this thing.
Wow.
Okay,
yeah.
good. We're going to have fun.
Okay.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no, that's fine.
We've got to get things ironed out, okay? Now, after you got through high school, what were you doing? Just working at something before you went in the service, you know? And then
well, what I did was I was always a skier, mm-hmm. and I got a job as a ski instructor and ski patrol mm-hmm. at Berkshire Thunder Mountain, which is now Berkshire East.
Berkshire East, yeah.
Right. And that's what I did. I was out of high school for about a year, maybe a year and a half, and of course, the draft notices went around, but I didn't get a draft notice, but I decided that I was going to enlist. And like I said, I wanted to be a CB. Mm-hmm. And so I went down to the recruiter in North Adams, and they said, oh, certainly, just sign here. And
yeah.
Yeah.
You lose.
You lose. They didn't tell you that in the beginning, though. Anyways, and so I went on the 120-day delay program. And
what did that? Just give you time to get yours
I signed up in October, November, December, whatever it was, and I didn't have to go in until April.
Okay.
And while I was working at the ski area, I met this fella up there who I found out also was headed for the Great Lakes. And that's a real good story. We'll probably get to that at some point, or unless you want to do it now. Yeah, all right.
Excuse me, I'm going to interrupt.
Okay.
So we get some kind of a train here. If you will, start when you went into boot, what you did, and then, because that's where you met the guy before that.
No, I met him. He was from Turner's Falls, Montague, Mass, up by Turner's Falls, Greenfield. And he, actually, if you want to flip through one or two of those pictures.
There you go. There we go.
No, okay. One more. Well, anyway, maybe one more. Okay, the fella, I'm the guy in the hat. The guy without the hat is Charlie, and he and I met at the ski area. He was operating lifts, and so we went to boot camp. Found out he was going, I was going. We were one class ahead of each other, or he was one class ahead of me. In other words, he would have gotten out a week earlier than I did. When we got our orders, naturally I didn't get the CBs, but I did get, that's Charlie that you're looking at right there. I got assigned to that cable ship that I was talking to you about. Yeah. So did Charlie.
Good.
And
so you did get together.
And for 2 years, he and I served on board USS Neptune, ARC-2. It's now it's on the West Coast, and it's the fish use it for it's a reef. They sunk it. Yeah.
Oh.
But I mean, after it was, it had been decommissioned and everything. Yeah. So we served on board. We were both bosun's mates, and we were on the East Coast for a while, and then went through the Panama Canal. Then we did cable surveys from Alaska down to Midway, Wake Island.
Wow. Now, was this quiet, if you will, secret, or was this
at the
normal
time,
duty at the time?
At the time, it was a secret. I mean,
just getting scoop.
Right. It was. We were escorted by a submarine and a destroyer escort. They were with us all the time because we had no armaments, just firearms and stuff like that. And we happened to have engine trouble on the way to Hawaii, so we had to go back to California, and we went into Vallejo, California. That's eating sea rations on the back of one of the river boats there. And if you want to hold those for just a second, I'll get into those. That's quite obvious shot there.
Beep, beep.
Yeah. Anyways, when we were in there having our ship repaired, we saw these river boats, which you're seeing some pictures of here. And we decided, both of us at the same time decided that's exactly what we were going to do. It was a slow life on the ship, and we needed a little excitement. So we talked to some of the people that were going through the training. We put a chit in, see if we could get on them, and by the time we went to Hawaii, after everything was fixed, we had our orders. We got 30 days leave, and our orders back to California, Vallejo, California, Mare Island. And that's in the San Francisco Bay.
Yeah.
And from there, we went through, I think it was 2 months of training. Those are alpha boats, by the way, right there. In fact, the one to my right was my boat, right there. And when we finished training, he and I were on the same boat, and this is the boat right here. This is called a Tango boat that you're looking at. This happens to be 13, which was beached in one of the rivers. We were both assigned. I was assigned to Tango 1, which is in some of these shots. He was assigned to Tango 2. I was a coxswain, which boat driver.
Yeah.
And he was a boat driver. That's a better look at the Tango boats. They had some of them had flight decks. This is later on in my tour, so all of these Tango boats had flight decks so that a medevac could land during a firefight or after a firefight. This, I'll go into this now. This is a marker round at the beginning of a firefight. We're on a river in one of the tributaries off of the Mekong Delta. We're in the Vietnam now already. This kind of getting a restaurant.
Set the stage.
Yeah. This is a marker round by one of the mortar artillery barges. We're getting fire from here. You can keep running these through now. It's hard to see here, but we're taking fire. If you can see that red rim, I'm taking pictures because we're taking fire on the starboard side of the boat, right side of the boat. I'm in a gun mount on the left side, port side, so I can't shoot. So I'm taking pictures of the action on this side. That's why I've got the pictures. Anyways, you can keep rolling these if you want. And this is all the same thing. This is the middle of the firefight. It gives you an idea of the boats and how narrow the rivers were. Guys can keep going there if you want.
Now, to set the stage.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
The flame coming out of there, that's a Zippo flamethrower. It was a boat set up as a flamethrower. That was a really excellent weapon for bunkers. A lot of bunkers along those rivers.
Or just cruise along the bank and
they would go in and burn. And this is actually mortar rounds, I guess, coming off of some of the boats. That's the Zippo again, burning in there.
I'm going to interrupt a second. I want to explain to the people watching, this is a brand new system we're trying right now. We're using some of Gery's slides and motion pictures and trying to feed them into while we're changing. So if it looks a little fractured, bear with us, because this is some good stuff, and we don't want to lose it. We want you to see what these guys went through, okay? Your nickel.
Okay, there again is the flamethrower.
They have a limited
They're
range?
receiving, pardon me?
They have a range of
I
anything?
think they could get out about 100, maybe 500 feet max. They did their work at about 200-300 feet.
So you had to be really in close.
You had to be pretty close, yeah.
Took a lot of fire.
Unfortunately, their casualty rate was very high, yeah. That smoke, you're in the middle of it. This is a picture of everybody, again, unloading on the banks. These boats, by the way, are full of GIs. What we're doing here, I forgot to mention this, is we're actually hauling GIs upriver, so that they have an insertion point that we're headed to. This just happened to be an ambush that we ran into.
Ooh.
Going upriver, taking them up there.
Okay.
And you don't stop. I mean,
you don't dare stop.
You're going right by. Now this is beached after all of the action there, and they're beached. They're going to be unloading troops, as you can see on here. There's the troops getting off into the water. And those guys would go out into the field for, this is coming back with some casualties. This is, but they'll be out in the field. Sometimes the operation would last 5 or 6 hours. Sometimes we'd come back in 2 days, 3 days.
Looks like a little urban
Yeah, it
renewal
was
there.
a little urban renewal. This is a light observation helicopter, which is about to land on the flight deck of this troop carrier right here. And in the back is a village along the river.
Now, did you have a particular base you worked out of, or did you just go up and down the river or rivers?
Well, this
do it?
particular part, and this was the first part of my tour in Vietnam, these are B-52 pockmarks taken from the air. That's what, if you can see there, they look like swimming pools. They're not. First part of my tour was, this is to give you an idea of how the big river and then a lot of the operations ran up those small tributaries that ran off of the big river, this would be the Mekong Delta, part of the Mekong Delta River. This part, these scenes that you've seen are from the first part of the time. This is the horseshoe. This is headed up away from the Mekong Delta. This was a well-known. The problem we had on this originally when they first got over there is you see where the two rivers come together and it's narrow. You would get ambushed on one side or the other, and a lot of the boats, all of the boats had 50 calibers and 20 millimeter cannon and 50 millimeter machine guns. Well, in that space, the 20 millimeter would go right across.
Okay, and you'd shoot yourself.
And you'd be shooting yourself, and that happened early on. And
Called friendly fire, which wasn't too friendly.
Right. But anyways, the boats in that firefight that you saw took place in the Mekong Delta. There's a helicopter landing on one of the flight decks there. The smoke is so that they see which way the wind is coming in off.
So I can land.
Yeah. Later on in the tour, there were different operations: Operation Slingshot, Operation Game Warden, which was above Saigon. This was below Saigon. Mekong Delta was a little bit below Saigon. That's an artillery base out in the middle of. That's a rice paddy, and I'm not sure where that is, but it's somewhere in the Delta region. They would fly in and out of there. It would be a fire base, be known as a fire base. This is going into the USO show, which was in Dong Tam, which was in the Mekong Delta. We happen to have had problems with our boat. We had gotten hit, and we were in there for repairs, and fortunately, while we were in there, the USO show just happened to be there. So all of you can keep going right through these. This is all USO show. Ann Margaret, Bob Hope, Rosie Greer, and a lot of people that are listening probably, and the Gold Diggers. You know, people don't even know who they are now. Well, we do, but you know, a lot of.
You got to be over 21.
Yeah, slightly. So we enjoyed that. That was one of the perks. I'm getting. At this point in late '68, after the Tet offensive, which, by the way, all of this took place after just a little before and after the Tet offensive. All right, these here, if you want to slow them down a little bit, can you back up on two of those?
Whoops.
You have to hold it. All right, this is kind of the lighter side of Vietnam. These are the children that we dealt with on a daily basis. We weren't always out on operations, and these kids here would be in sampans, the little boats, and they'd come out to
little bumboats.
Yeah, and they would trade soda, ice. They would trade stuff like this right here. Let me show you this.
A homegrown?
What this is this was a jacket made out of a poncho liner. And anybody that was in Vietnam will know what a poncho liner is. That was what kept you warm. Now this jacket.
What's the insignia on there?
This was our.
A little slower.
Okay.
We can't get
this
it
was
all.
this was our river insignia. We were river raiders.
Uh-huh.
And of course my name and
Yeah, that's so you know
yeah,
who
this
you
isn't
are.
this isn't military issue.
I
This-
know.
Yeah, but what they did was the kids or the black market. If you needed a pair of boots, you could get them quicker on the river by these little kids. You'll see she's holding a can
Yeah.
of soda, Coke. You couldn't get Coca-Cola. It wasn't that easy to get soda. But if you were out on the river patrolling, you were out on an operation, and these sampans came around, they would have
Anything you need.
jackets like
Yeah.
this made out of our
Oh, yeah. Material.
material. You could get boots, hats, soda, ice,
Yeah.
you know, anything you wanted. And we traded sea rations. Here's some more children. They would always come from all the villages. This wasn't an operation. Now we would, I have to, if you'll slow down a bit.
Okay.
When you were off of an operation, you were in the Mekong Delta is a really large, wide river, and we had ships out there, which was the Mobile Riverine base, and we would be tied up alongside these ships, and for security, they would have designated boats circling the ships all the time, and you'd be dropping. We had hand grenades that were percussion grenades, and every so often you'd drop a percussion grenade in there, and that was to prevent divers, which actually from coming in and blowing up some of the ships that were there. Actually, a couple of them while I was there had gotten hit. Anyways, going back to the children, while you're in your boat going around in a circle, rather large circle, these kids would come out and trade things. So you were dealing with them on a daily.
Yeah.
That was also detrimental because we did have, unfortunately, and this happened while I was over there. To my boat, we were refueling on a refueler, which was a troop carrier. Only it had a fuel cell in
There's
there.
a big cell
Had
tanker.
a fuel cell. And one of these boats with the little kids came out as we were refueling, only and they're using the children now in Iraq for the same thing with the explosive belts. Well, they had these two little kids come out with it was either a hand grenade or some sort of an explosive. And as we were on one side, they came and we saw them coming in, figuring they were going to trade us for ice or something, and they detonated the tank.
That's
And,
bad.
It was
Bad.
yeah. It was you know, I mean.
I wonder though, wasn't that kind of a violation of security, if you will, if they would have let them to get that close? Remember, like they blew up that ship there in the Arabian Gulf.
Right,
You know,
right.
Bing, bing, and before you know it, it's too late.
Well, and that's the same thing. I mean, you get lax. Now, that's part of the Mobile Riverine base. That's taken from an chopper that's going to land. But that's pretty much what it would look like, only on a wider part of the river. You get very lax. I mean, even we were very lax when the coal got hit. I mean, we knew for years that was...
That's a no-no.
That's a no-no. This is a good look at some of the rivers that we would patrol on.
Wow. Now, that raises a question, if you will. I'm a landlubber Navy guy, okay? But when you were up some of these small tributaries, how the heck could you turn around and come back out without taking a lot of heat?
Well, this is a good shot. If you'll hold this shot for just a second.
Well,
these are different boats, and I served on these boats, particularly they're called alpha boats.
what does that mean?
Well, an alpha boat would be alpha. It's an ASPB. It would be a foot assault patrol boat.
Okay.
Is what it's called. Aluminum hull, The armament on the front's twin 50s. There's a 20 millimeter cannon on the top. The coxswain's flat is in the superstructure that you can see right in the front.
That was well armored, wasn't it? So hopefully.
Well, the only thing that was armored on it, because it was all aluminum,
Yeah.
was around the coxswain's flat, which was 3 inches of laminated steel and brass, and actually rounds.
Would go through?
The rockets have gone through it. In
Yeah.
fact, did on my coxswain's flat. That happened to me.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, this is what's left of a Vietnamese riverboat, which was one of our LC, you know, the invasion boats that they used.
Yeah,
in,
the old Higgins boats.
Right. Well, that's what they were using for patrol boats. And with those boats that were just in that picture, we used to go out on night ambushes. That was basically what we did. Now this is after. This is a shot of fiberglass PBR, which is Patrol Boat River. These are the ones that you really hear about. They were faster than the ones than the boats that I was on.
But they have a souped-up engine or motor?
Well, they had 2 V6 Jimmy diesels, and they had this first time they used anything like this. They didn't have propellers. They had
jet.
jacuzzi jets,
Yeah.
and they weighed 9 ton, and they could actually go over 10 or 12 inches of water without
Whoa.
getting hung up. So they were very maneuverable, and they could. I think top speed was somewhere around 30 knots, and they
Wow.
could actually do a 360, turn right around, and go the other way.
Well, like those boats they have down in the Everglades, the airboats.
Yeah, well,
not quite as,
no, not
as
quite
simple.
as- yeah.
Well, good. Okay.
So I'm getting in a lot of stuff here in a
I
short
know,
time.
I know.
That's the picture there is a couple of patrol boats going up one of the narrower rivers. So.
Well, how long were you? Was there a specific time? A tour would be what? A month, 6 weeks, 10
Well, usually
weeks,
a
whatever?
tour was a year.
Okay.
And I extended over there for, I extended, I think I extended 3 months so that I could get out of the Navy when I got out of Vietnam. Because when I got out of Vietnam, it was going to be, it was going to be still, I think, 3 months left to serve in the
On your tour.
on my tour. So I extended over there so that I would get out early.
Okay. Now, did you guys have any kind of a point system like we had back in WW2, you know, so many points and then you could go home almost automatically? Or did you get it planned R&R, planned rotation?
Well, there was R&R. A lot of the guys on the boats got R&R. I didn't get R&R because at the time my R&R came up, we were in the middle of Vietnamization. We were handing over our boats to the Vietnamese.
Okay.
And it was in the transition. I needed to go to another boat, which was the Alpha boats that I had. That was the last pictures that you saw. They weren't the troop carriers, and I was on operations up in was Operation Slingshot, which was above Saigon. And it was right up to the Cambodian border. In fact, we ran a lot of operations, night ambushes and insertions, some SEAL insertions up in Cambodia. To answer your question, if I had 3 Purple Hearts, I could get out. Sayonara. We had a lot of guys doing that. I personally have been wounded 3 times, refused to even put in for that. At that point, you know, you're having casualties on some of these operations, and if you haven't lost an arm or you haven't lost a leg, you've got a scratch, maybe a little bit of shrapnel. A lot of the guys will understand that.
Kiss it off.
You're not well, and there's a lot of guys that were at this point that were a lot worse off, and I didn't have the stomach to.
But
I was
no-
embarrassed to go up with
Well,
what
hey.
I had. Anyways.
Anyway.
So yes, you could get out early.
Yeah. Okay. Now, when you said you were going in the Vietnamesing, if you will, turning the ships over, did you have to stay by or act as an instructor or a trainer for some of these guys coming along so that you could pass over your knowledge to them?
Yes. What we did was we had a crew come on with us, so that they actually went out on missions.
Okay, they shadowed you, in other words.
They would shadow you.
Yeah.
Right. And.
You have any trouble as far as the language went? Had interpreters? Or?
No, a lot of them, the language didn't seem to be a real barrier. The French had been over there, and so they were used to sign language.
Oh, okay. All right.
At times there was a barrier. I mean, they didn't understand. I mean, obviously, flat out, but I guess a lot of the guys that were going on to the different weapons and,
Gunnery school, in effect.
well, I don't know if they went to gunnery school.
Well,
but,
I mean, that'd be the training.
Yeah. We were giving them gunnery school, hands-on.
Yeah.
Didn't seem to be too much of a problem with the
Okay.
language.
Was there a good rapport between you guys? Did you get along well?
Pretty much. The one problem that I saw was that they really didn't have the will to. Some of them were fighters, but a lot of them weren't fighters.
They were there because they had
They
to
were
be.
there. I mean, the war's been going on for 50 years, so they weren't. They weren't happy to
gung-ho.
be there. Actually, we ran into some Tiger Scouts, which were women. Now they were extremely aggressive, and
They knew the name of the
they
game.
probably could have. You ever see that movie with what was it, G.I. Jane?
No.
With that isn't the one. Anyways,
Okay, anyhow.
I can't think of the actress's name, but those girls could have taken her place in that movie. She was going out to be a SEAL. Anyways, it doesn't make any difference. But so, anyways, we trained them, and it was a short training. They might have gone on the boat 2 or 3 weeks, a month maybe, and then they took the boats over.
Now, were they embedded, if you will, the new term they use today? Were they with you, and as far as your base where you lived and all that good stuff, or they had their own separate encampments? How'd
No,
they get together?
that's the plane I flew home on, C-141A.
Welcome home, Charlie. Bob.
Yeah. No, they didn't stay with us.
Okay.
At least the crew that we had trained, the crews, I did that on 2 different boats. They didn't. They'd stay on the boat when you were on the boat, because we
okay,
used to
but-
live on the boat
Yeah.
when you were out on an operation. But they didn't stay. They didn't stay with us.
Okay. I'm going to switch gears for a minute, because
Okay,
this stuff
certainly.
is fascinating. We're talking about the stuff you get on the bumboat, so we used to call them in Shanghai bumboats. But give the folks a song
right,
and dance, if you will.
This is actually Navy issue. They're a pair of combat boots, but as you probably saw in some of those slides, I didn't wear Navy issue uniform. I wore shorts,
Okay.
and I wore.
Hold them up so I can really
I
see.
wore these sandals that I made out of the combat boots. Over there, steel plate. This
Old Faithful.
that was 45. That was a holster for a 45. It's like a Western holster, but you could get them on the black market.
This issue or this homegrown?
Yeah, these actually were issued over there. It wasn't Navy issue, but it was a. I mean, they
use common sense.
yeah.
How about the beanie?
The beanie, that's my, and this is one, I had 3 or 4 of them that I took back, and this one is, as you can see, there's not much left of it. But
more of the holes where you took shots?
No,
or
no,
just
no,
wearing
it's
them
the
out?
sun. It's just burnt by the sun.
Bring back some memories for a lot of guys, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. The Army.
Now, this I think everybody.
Okay,
should get.
let me.
This is important.
I hope I can get this whole thing in. This cross, and I'm going to go back to when I was on board ship when we were in California. This fella came on, new recruit.
Hold it still. They will take a good look at it.
New recruit came on, and he was a missionary, not a missionary. He was a monk.
Okay.
And he had dropped out of the order. His name was Anthony Padolano, one of the very few names I remember. And he was on board ship with us for only a short period, but Charlie and I, the fellow that I served with there, he and I befriended him.
Just buddied right up.
Right, and before we left for Vietnam, he, and I don't know if this was a legal blessing, but he blessed us and he gave us each one of these crosses. This cross hung in both boats that I was, actually 3 different boats that I was on. 2 of the boats that I was on got hit pretty well. We got shot up pretty good. And anyways, after I got out of the service, I got married. My brother-in-law, who was in the Navy, he was much younger than I am, but he was in the Navy, and he was going to Bosnia. And he was a crew chief on a medevac chopper.
Yeah.
And he was over in Bosnia. So I brought this out, the cross, and he had talked to me about Vietnam a little bit. He was interested in what was going to happen and everything else. And I talked to him, and anyways, I gave him the cross. And he was over in Bosnia for a year. Came back intact.
Good.
Gave me the cross back. Last year, he went over to Iraq again on a medevac helicopter, crew chief. And again...
You had it with him?
Had it with him. Flew ops in and out of... wherever there was a hot spot, they flew in and out of over there. Yeah, he was a target every time he left. That cross on the side over there meant nothing.
And that Red Cross was a good target,
right.
too.
And
it did it.
You notice I have the cross back.
Oh, yeah?
My brother-in-law came back safely, and so that's the story of the cross. So this is...
It did its job.
Did its job.
Okay.
Yep. That was...
Now, how about the gun handles? That, I think, a lot of guys would like to hear about.
The gun handles, I kept a diary when I was in the Delta. I had time. When I got off of the tango boats, which are the troop boats, and went on to the assault boats, then you ran out of time because you were running a lot of missions, there was a lot to do. We did a lot of night ambushes and everything else. So what I did, I had a 45 that I had gotten over there early on out of a cache. We went out with some EODs, blowing bunkers, and we found a cache.
What is an EOD?
Oh, all right, explosive ordnance. They were EOD was those guys were trained in explosives.
Okay.
So they would go out with us on the boats, and we'd find bunkers, and they would
defuse it.
They would rig the bunker up and blow it up.
Blow it. Yeah.
Right. And you would find, sometimes you'd find a cache of weapons. We found a cache of weapons. I took several weapons. One of the weapons that I used almost the whole time over there was this 45. When I got up on Operation Slingshot on the assault boats, I didn't have time to really write in a diary or actually a lot of that stuff had got sent back. And so anyways, I used the butt plates as diaries.
Okay.
So I've got inscribed on here different.
Can you hold that up so they can't? I'd
You
like the
can't
camera
really
to-
see it.
Okay. It looks like I can take a peek at it.
Yeah, if you, I don't think you, if you zero in on it, you might see some writing in there. But
Good.
anyways, so that was my diary. Those are very important pieces of my history.
Yeah.
And
That's it. Now, you got some more goodies here. How about taking a few minutes and just kind of glancing through, not to give it short shift, but to let people know what you did and who you are.
all right, these are awards. I've got to find which. All right, that's this is a meritorious service award, and we got this. It gives a summation of the operations and stuff. These two here.
Excuse me, but were these per boat or per guy? Some units used to get one.
Right,
everybody would get one.
This was for pretty much the division, which would have been
a
12
flotilla?
boats. Yeah, the small. These, however, are individual awards. These two awards, I got. One was I was serving on a troop carrier. The lead-in picture that you saw with a mortar around there. That was one of the awards for
The meritorious service?
No, it wasn't meritorious
Commendation?
service. Actually, it reads, this is to certify from the Secretary of the Navy. The award has Navy Commendation Medal with Combat B, Boatswain's Mate, 3rd Class Gery Benedetti, United States Navy for heroic achievements on 14 August 1969. And what it was that I was on a boat. We were on an operation. The Van Kodong River runs into Cambodia. Obviously, this doesn't mention Cambodia, but there was an ARVN airborne base up there. We were on a patrol at night. The ARVN airborne base came under fire. In the beginning of those slides, I had a mortar, and it showed on the back of a boat. Well, that mortar was to be used in case we got ambushed. Well, what happened was the ARVN airborne base, which was right on the edge of the river, started to get overrun. We were the closest boat there on operation. So, and I was the coxswain, and I wasn't supposed to go out on that mortar. I had set the mortar up personally. I had welded it on the back, but one of the gunners was supposed to go out there and load that mortar.
Okay.
Well, the gunner refused to get out of his mount, so I had him come up and drive. I went out on the back, and
You did your thing.
I did my thing out there.
Smart, no. You had to do
Well,
it.
at the time, you're
I
only
know,
thinking of achieving
Getting it
the
done.
goal
Yeah.
at hand. You're not thinking of anything else. And I had no idea. This came 6 months after I was out of the service.
Oh.
This one is also for heroic achievement with a Combat V and a Gold Star. And this happened on the other boats. They're called Alpha boats, and we had escorted some, actually we had brought some Seabees up. This was up in Operation Slingshot, and the Seabees were making a base in a place called Godaha on the Van Kodong River. We escorted some sandbag barges up. Took a day to get up there. The next day we had to bring them all the way down river to a place called Tres Coups, which was most of the day run. On the way back up, 2 boats, one in front of the other, ran into an ambush. The lead boat took a hit and caught on fire, but we managed to get them to the far side, still under fire. I was able to bring my boat, which was in the back, in, pick the crew up, get back out, and support, make sure, set a perimeter around. And at that point, we had air cover. We had some Cobra gunships that were in the area. We were able to call those in. I was the coxswain on that Alpha boat. So
you were
was
the boat
awarded.
driver, made the decision.
I was making the decision. I was awarded. Right.
Good. Good.
Now, I looked into these, and at this time, a lot of the officers that were serving on on the rivers over there, they were the ones that put you in for accommodations, Bronze Star, Silver Star, Gold Star, whatever it is. They were putting themselves in for a lot of medals.
Oh.
So what happened was medals, Purple Heart medals, and what happened was that if you weren't put in for an award that was one above the one you were going to receive, then you got a lower. This is what I was told.
How come? I don't dare go there, but
yeah, I don't know what the basis was, other than the fact that
That's
the
name
officers,
of the game.
yeah.
Well,
So, anyways, yeah.
well, let's kind of jump ahead a little bit.
Okay.
You're all done. You're all home, and so forth. How has your life been afterwards, outside the service? You married, kids, had a new job, made a job, clipping coupons, and all that good stuff. You tell us what your reaction to it.
Well, when I got out, I didn't have any uniforms. When I flew home, I flew home in
civvies?
I flew home in this stuff here, which was not really Navy issue. These are
Walmart special.
These are camouflage greens that you got from the Vietnamese on the rivers, which I was telling you about. Well,
the bumboats.
When I got to Travis Air Force Base on the West Coast, that was a different story. I came home to, protesters, especially when we flew in. Somehow they knew we were coming there, protesters. There were 5 of us that were headed out to the East Coast, to New Jersey. We had to fly civilian airlines. We came in on that C-141 Alpha, but we had to fly out on civilian airline. And they weren't going to allow us to get on the airlines with our uniforms. That's exactly
They is who, the airline or the protesters?
No. When we came in, we had to go through our people.
Okay.
To get out of our gate to go into the civilian gate. And the petty officer at the gate wasn't going to allow us, somebody who had probably not served in country, I'm sure, wasn't going to allow us to get out.
In
and
uniform.
Go in what we had. We had nothing else to go in. So what we did was seeing there were 5 of us and 1 of him, we overruled him, and they did let us, finally, they let us get on
Okay.
on the airline, so we flew home in camouflage
Okay.
equipment, camouflage uniform. Most people get debriefed. I was on an operation in country on the river, and in 2 days I was on board that C-141 and headed back to the United States. So there was no
debrief.
There was no nothing. You went from combat, or at least I did, and the guys that I flew back with, we went from combat to, I mean, you didn't have a chance to slow down. Getting to your question, it was hard to adjust, needless to say. I went to college. I first worked on the railroad, but the railroad.
As an engineer, a
No,
brakeman?
no. I got my grandfather and uncles, and they had worked for the B&M, and he was still working for the Boston, Maine, and I got on as crew. Worked in the Hoosick Tunnel and stuff for a while, and decided I better go to college. Still having a lot of anxiety, not really understanding what
was going on
at the time. Looking back, I mean, I'm 62 and I can look back, but then you had no idea what was going on. And anyways, I went to college. I met my wife. I went to BCC. I met her at BCC and went on to University of Massachusetts. I was in education.
Good. Did you follow up on that? Were
I
you a
didn't
teacher?
follow that through. My temperament would not allow it.
Okay.
I did not make a good. I was a phys ed. Would have been a phys ed instructor and minor in sciences. And my temperament would not allow it. And so I got into construction, and I spent 30 years in construction as an equipment operator. Now, this worked out with you're working with people that are, I mean, you're not a white, you're not sitting at a desk, so you're
9 to 5.
You're always in a, there's always a little bit of conflict. There's always, and so it kind of
let you subside a little.
Well, it didn't let me subside. It just was able to. It's hard to describe. You're never really a happy person.
Have you gotten over that?
You're happy. You're trying not to bring it home, so you're using. You're using working with guys and outside, and you're trying to get your aggression out there rather than getting your aggression out at home. And I succeeded somewhat in doing that.
Good.
It wasn't.
So do you have a family? Any kids,
I have a
youngsters?
son. I have a son who. Yes, he's 34. He's actually a jet pilot. He flies Gulfstreams.
Ooh.
He's an international pilot.
North Adams?
No. He's based out of Oxford, but he flies for a concern out of. They fly over in Kuwait and Europe, and
so they're busy. Huh?
they're very busy. Yeah, and he was on the Olympic training and alternate team, skiing, slalom, and giant slalom. He's skied all over the world training. Didn't get to the Olympics. It was the year that they didn't have the Winter Games. One year, I forget what it was now. But anyways, he would have had to. He would have had to put his life on hold for the next the next Olympics, and he decided to go to college. So he went out to Whitman College in Walla Walla, Washington.
Oh yeah, nice country out there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Now, maybe sound weird, but in all of this that you've seen, you've done, you've been a part, how do you really feel now? Did what you did and how you did it, do you feel at peace, or you still have that itch or aggression? Some way we can kind of ease it down? Just a quick answer.
It's always looking for the adrenaline rush. I mean, I do a lot of kayaking.
Okay,
I
you're
do a lot of
always
skiing.
on the edge. Yeah.
You're always on the edge. I don't think you ever lose that. However, I think I've been able to mellow considerably through the years.
Good. Now, let me say thank you. We got to pull the plug.
Okay.
The man says, press the flesh, and we'll go skiing sometime. I need some help.
Okay.
I still do a stem turn.
And I want to thank you also for your
Why?
service.
Oh, sayonara. Okay?
It was good
Now,
talking with you.
this has been perhaps a little different, but a real good interview, sharing some histories and so forth. And that's what we're trying to do to the rest of you guys. We're slowly being accepted, I guess that's the best way to put it, that we're here to try to make that transition from whatever was to what's now going on and what part you played in it. So please, if you'd like to share your story, give us a call. Name is Bob Stevens. The number's all over town. We welcome you, and we'll do all we can. Guys like Gery and some of the others, we're here to make sure you have a good time. We thank you. Have a good life.